Alright, in this video it's time to put together some actor editing code. This is where we bring the world of selections and movement into the actual scene editor so that we can edit actors at runtime. Now in this video we're going to be working with the selection, deselection, and movement of actors. Now to show this in action, it would be very handy to have some actors in the scene. Unfortunately, in the last video we deleted the temporary code that was creating 3 actors. So before we progress, since we've got the exact same scene loaded here in the scene navigation class, I'm going to hit Control-Z just to bring this code back. So if you're following along exactly, then you would probably want to bring this back as well. If not, you may want to spend a moment, pause the video, and type this code back out. So once again, we're starting here with a series of 3 actors created. Now I will comment out the portion where we are performing selections, since we're now getting ready to make the selection part truly interactive. Alright, now that we have our 3 reference actors, it's time to get started inside of the editor and begin putting some of this functionality together. I'm going to move over here to the Scene Editor class, scroll down a little bit so we're looking at the Scene Editor constructor, and we are going to begin by subscribing to some mouse input events. So I'm going to jump in here right below our keyboard input key release handler, and let's begin addressing mouse input. First we'll do mouse move. So we'll say mouse input dot mouse move. We'll hit plus equals, tab to bring up the handler, the delegate instantiation, tab again to drop in the handler method, and then we can move on from here. We'll handle the actual implementations here in a moment. First, we'll get all of our event subscriptions in place. The second event we're looking for is mouse input.mouse down. Again, same thing, plus equals, tab twice, we'll drop everything in place. And finally, we'll look for mouse input.mouse up. Plus equals, tab and tab again. Now, looking at these, I do want to slightly reorder them. Just based on the order that we're going to put some of these together. I'm actually going to move mouse down to the very top, followed by mouse up, and followed by mouse move. Actually, thinking about it for just a moment, I'm actually going to put mouse move on the top. Just sorting through some notes here at the moment. This is primarily for later when we're looking at different sections of code. The only reason I'm doing this is mouse move will be somewhat related to some of the key input. Which that reminds me, I'm actually going to put all of the mouse functionality below the key input. So one last code move is going to involve taking all of the mouse functions, rather the mouse handlers, and moving them here below our keyboard input. And another thing this does, if we look at the order in which we're subscribing to events, we have key release, mouse move, mouse down, mouse up. Now if we look at the handlers, key release, mouse move, mouse down, and finally mouse up. Keeps everything a little bit more straightforward. Alright, now I'm going to begin by taking out all of our exceptions from these various handlers. Since we're going to be implementing all 3 of these in this video, we don't need to worry about anything notifying us of these methods being unimplemented. And before we get started, there is one we could almost classify it as a utility method that's going to get assembled that will help with actor selection. We're going to assemble a method that will allow us to check and see if an actor is present at a given position. This will be used in conjunction with mouse clicks to see if the mouse click happened to land on an actor. So we're going to make a method right here inside of the scene editor. This method is going to be private and will return an actor. So we'll define this method as actor, and we'll call the method getActorAt. Then we'll specify a position using a vector2, which we will simply call position. Now, with this method, what we're going to do is look through all of the actors in the actor list and see if any of those actors happen to be underneath the mouse pointer. So what we'll do is we'll create a for loop. Now we'll actually create a for loop that runs in reverse. So I'm going to bring up the template for for with 2 R's, tab to complete it, and we have a loop that's going to start at the end based on length and loop towards the beginning. The reason we're doing this is so that if we have actors that are drawing on top of each other, we'll grab what appears to be the topmost actor. Now, as far as the loop is concerned, we're going to be looping through the actors list. So I is going to begin at actor, which if I bring this back to actor.actors.count -1. So our index will start out pointing at the very last actor in the list. Now we need to do a check and see where this actor is located. Now to make it a little bit easier to work with this actor reference, I'm going to create a local variable of type actor called actor, and that will be equal to actor.actors sub I. Again, this is just for convenience, so we have an easier to type handle back to this actor. Now we can do an if statement to perform the check and see if the mouse did indeed hit an actor. So the way we'll do this is, of course, we want to have the visual representation of the actor roughly match what we clicked on. So we'll use the radius of the actor and use the entire area inside of the actor, if you imagine the actor as a circle, as the selectable area. So what we'll do is we'll take the distance between the two positions, where we have one position being our click position, the other position being this actor's position. If those are a distance that is less than the actor's radius, then the position falls inside of the actor. So we can say if vector2.distance between the two positions of actor.position and the position parameter, if that value is less than the actor's radius, then we have successfully selected an actor. So to indicate that, we will return the actor by simply saying return actor. Now, if this loop managed to finish iterating through the actors list and found no actor that was underneath the mouse pointer, we will return null. And this will indicate that we were unable to get an actor at this position. Alright, now that we have an easy way of grabbing actors based on a vector position, let's move up to the mouse down method and begin creating the actor selection code. So the first thing that's going to happen inside of mouse down is we're going to check the position where the mouse was clicked at and see if an actor is present. So we will make an actor local variable called actor, and that will be set using the method getActorAt, passing along the position. Now, if that actor was present, we'll do a series of things. Otherwise, we'll clear the selection. So let's put together an if statement saying if actor is not equal to null, and drop some braces in for the if statement, then we will take the actor and select it. Now, we are going to need to add some more complex code in order to handle the various cases of one actor being selected, multiple actors being selected, whether or not we're going to move, and so forth. But just to try and build this piece by piece so we can see what's going on, let's from this moment go ahead and launch and see what happens. So here we have our three actors. If we were to click on one of them, you can see it turns green to indicate that it is now selected. And we can do that for the remaining actors. Now at the moment, all we're checking for is that we grabbed an actor and we're selecting it. We have nothing in place to deselect. We can't reselect or toggle select. But we can see that this code is properly detecting that we hit actors. Now let's put together the other part of this if statement. We'll say that if the actor we clicked on was null, then we need to deselect. So we can say else, drop in some brackets, and say actor.selection.clear. So here we can see we do have a case where we're actually grabbing the full selection list because we're wanting to do an operation that would be called deselect all. But the code required to clear the list is very simple, so we're simply allowing direct access to the list itself. So now we can see we can select actors and deselect them by clicking off of them. So we can see that this click landed on an actor, a second click also lands on the actor and stays selected, and clicking away from it deselects it. Though if we, actually let me jump back into the game for a moment and note that we are still able to select multiple actors at a time just by clicking the mouse. Now we do want to be able to select multiple actors with multiple clicks, but we only want that to happen if we have the control key pressed. So I'm going to change the else clause a little bit and change it into an else if, so that we can check for the condition of the keyboard control key being pressed. So we can say, reading the if statement, if we don't have an actor, meaning we clicked on something that wasn't an actor, and the control key is not pressed, then we proceed with the clear. So we can say if not keyboard input dot control. So looking here, we have is control down. So if we're not pressing control, go ahead and clear. If we are pressing control, allow multiple actors to be selected. So we can see if we click on these one at a time now, we've got all of them staying selected. And this is part that we have to add here in a minute. So what that's saying, actually I was even looking at the wrong part. This clause, is actually for what happens when we click outside of actors. So to demonstrate what's going on, we have to see that clicking away from them will deselect it. Unless we hold the control key, now deselecting will hold the selection, which is convenient because that way if you're making a multiple selection, miss an actor, it doesn't destroy your selection. Click outside, then continue selecting. Alright, time to get a little more interesting with the selection code, because we do want to be able to replace selections as we're going through actor by actor. So what we'll do is, rather than immediately selecting, we'll do a check and see if the keyboard control key is held. So keyboard input is control down, then we want to toggle select rather than selecting. So we'll say actor dot toggle select. This will allow us to deselect an actor by clicking on it a second time. Then we'll drop in an else clause and place the actor.select into the else. So now if we run, we see that we can go through. Now we probably still don't have our deselection in place yet, but we can see that if we hold the control key, we can now add to or remove from the selection. Alright, one last thing to put in place, and that is deselecting the actors. Now, what I mean by that is if we already have a selection in place, and then click on another actor without pressing any keys, we'd like the original one to get deselected. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is simply doing actor.selection.clear, which if we test it in a simple scenario, works easily enough, where now we can click on the actors and the previous one gets deselected. And the problem with doing this is happening the moment we mouse down. So even before we release the mouse button, the other one gets deselected. Here in a moment we will have a scenario set up where we can move actors, and you wouldn't want to have a multi-selection of actors end up getting deselected right before you begin to move them. So we only want to perform the actor deselection in a very certain scenario. So let's put together an if statement saying if the actor in question is not currently selected. So if not actor dot is selected, and we do not have the control key down. Because if we do have the control key, we want to be able to do multi-selection. So not keyboard input dot is control down. So in this scenario, then we'll go ahead and clear. Otherwise, if the actor is already selected, we may be preparing to drag and move the actors rather than deselect them. That means we'll have to defer the actual deselection until the mouse is released and we can tell the difference between a drag or just a simple click. So now if we build and run, we can see that we have individual selections. We have multiple selections if we hold the control key, and we can toggle select using the control key. However, if we have actors selected and hit the mouse button down, they do not immediately deselect. And at the moment, they don't deselect at all. So we've actually partially lost our individual selection code. But again, like I was saying, this simply gets deferred to the mouse up operation. So it's actually time to move down to mouse up and put this in place. So again, inside of mouse up, what we're concerned here with is doing a possible clearing of the selection. We need to do a check first, though, to make sure that the scenario is correct. So we'll put together an if statement, and we'll say if actor.selection.count is greater than 0, and we are not holding the control key. So if not, keyboard input.is control down. Because again, even with the mouse up clicks, it may be possible that we're holding control and attempting to make a multiple selection. So if there are actors selected when the mouse up occurs, and we're not holding control, then we can go ahead and clear the selection list. So we'll take actor.selection.clear. And one further thing we'll do is the fact that the mouse up could have actually occurred on top of an actor. And if that's the case, the mouse up to the user would simply feel like a click. So we need to make sure that that actor we moused up over does get selected. The idea is if we had a multiple selection and mouse down over a brand new actor, make sure that actor gets selected. So let's see if an actor is present. Let's make an actor local variable called actor, and we will assign that actor using our getActorAt method, passing in the position given by the mouse up. So if we do have an actor, which we can check by saying if actor is not equal to null, then we need to select that actor by calling actor.select. Alright, let's build and run the game. Now if we select two things and then mouse down on one of them, we can see that nothing gets selected yet, but the moment we mouse up, then the first actor gets selected. So we actually had to defer the selection, or excuse me, the deselection operation until the mouse is released. So if we bring the third actor in by mousing down, then he gets immediately selected because we weren't using control. Again, this is for things that are already selected. Whereas before, the mouse down would have left the one on the right. Now mouse up properly clears that. So with that now we have our selection code in place that can handle multiple selection and properly handle deselection. So there is one thing left before we have full editability, and that is the ability to drag actors around, to move them. So now it's time to move up to the mouse move handler and put some code in place that will move actors around. Now before we begin moving actors, we need to check a few things. First, we need to make sure that the editor is actually in the move mode. So we'll check our edit mode and make sure that that is move. So we can say if this.edit mode is equal to edit mode.move. And one other thing we'll check is this is the mouse move event, which fires regardless of whether or not the button is pressed. We only want to drag actors if the mouse button is still down. So we'll say and our mouse input is still showing that the left button is pressed. So we'll access the is left button down property. Now, if this is the case, we are in a state where we're ready to move actors around based on how the mouse just moved. So we'll do a loop through our actors. Actually, we'll do a loop through all of the selected actors and move all of them. So we'll create a for each loop. So we can say for each actor in actor.selection. We'll take each of those selected actors and we will increment their position by the amount that the mouse moved, which is represented by the movement parameter. So actor.position plus equals movement. So now if we build the game and select an actor, you can see that he doesn't go with the mouse because we're in select mode. If we hit W and change over to move mode, we can take this actor and we can drag it around anywhere on the screen with the mouse. Of course, we still have the code in place for multiple selections, so we can grab these two actors using the control key and drag both of them down. And this is the real key point for the mouse down code, is the fact that even though I'm holding no keys on the keyboard, I can mouse down on this actor and move them around, and then mouse up and nothing happens to this one. If I mouse down and I don't move and I mouse up, you can see this one gets selected. And this behavior is actually a combination of the code we've just placed into Scene Editor and the code that's back in mouse input that is carefully deciding whether we show a mouse up or show an end drag after moving. This is the code that's actually preventing us from deselecting those actors after we finish dragging. So with all of this in place now, we now have a scene editor that has selection and movement capability when working with actors. So with this is going to wrap up this video.